Okay, so welcome everybody to how to get your bombs on seats for your open coaching programs. Um, I'm going to be running this as along with Reg. So Reg and I have been working together for a few months now. We've known each other for a couple of years. We're both based in Kent in the UK, and we've hit on an idea of using the Clarity cards, which is a system I've developed over the last few years, and it's really worked well. So we thought, well, we'd like to share this as a process. We know that a lot of coaches who do run open coaching workshops, they've all got struggles at, getting people on the bookings. And so we just thought we'd show you our approach and tell you a bit about it. So before we get onto that, just a bit about where the Clarity cards really came from. And it really came from me wanting something really easy to use when I went into organizations. So I was doing one-to-one coaching, and because I'd done it previously in corporate life before I left and set up my own business, I wanted to do more team and group coaching. So on this particular instance, I was going into an organization and I'd been talking to the MD. He'd got problems with his senior level staff, but wasn't really telling me what was going on. So he was looking for a workshop for me to run, but he was really struggling to tell me what exactly he needed. Now, I'd learned from years of experience of going into places and me being the one that was talkative about, yes, I can do this, and I've done this with other people. And it was learning to shut myself up, which coaching training has taught me a lot to do, go in and listen to them more. So I decided my approach for this particular person, this MD, would be, well, I've got to really listen to him and get what he needs. So as preparation for this, I devised a spreadsheet and I picked out all the keywords that I'd had from over the years as testimonials. When I'm trying to plan something, I resort to a spreadsheet because I used to work in IT, and they say, you can't take the IT out of the, you can take me out of IT, but you can't take the IT out of the person. So that's my default position. If I'm stressed or anything, I quick get a spreadsheet. So I looked at all the testimonials that I'd gleaned over probably about 10 years by this time. So I looked at LinkedIn, my website, and I started to see patterns. So particular words emerged from their feedback that related to a type of coaching that I'd done. So I put these in a spreadsheet, and I'd got 9 types of coaching or areas. So whether it was values or motivation or goal setting, I've put them in this grid, and I took them on a spreadsheet to have this chat with the MD. And he starts talking, and I'm asking him to tell me what the problems are with his staff, with his team. And he says a couple of these words, and I immediately get my form out and I start highlighting them. Anyway, he sees what I'm doing and he takes the form off me and says, "Oh, right, yeah, I can see what you're doing." And he starts highlighting the words himself, and then points to one of the workshops, which he has no idea, because it's what I call it. He had no idea what this workshop would be about or what it would do. He said, "Yeah, that's the workshop I want you to run for my staff." And it was as easy as that. And I thought at the time, oh, maybe this is a bit of a fluke, it's just his personality. He wanted to get things going really quickly. So there was no proposal. I gave him a quick quote that afternoon. Yes, we're going ahead. And we did the workshop. And it was the right workshop for what his staff needed. So what I realized was this spreadsheet was telling him the benefits, and that's really all he was interested in. He wasn't interested in the content or the fact that I'd use NLP or whatever else I've been trained in. And that didn't interest him at all. Anyway, just to prove that this would work again, I went into another completely different type of industry this time. I'd met the operations director at the seminar, been sat next to her. She said she'd got problems with her staff. And I said, well, this is something I could probably help you with. Can I come in and see you, have a chat? So I went in to see her and the MD, and I took this form in again, but this time I was a bit more upfront about what I was doing. And I said, right, after the initial chat of them telling me what the situation was with the staff, I said, right, you tell me on this form what you think you need for your team. And they highlighted the words and picked 2 of the workshops. So out of the 9, they picked it, right, we want these 2. And again, no proposal writing, it was that easy. So it was a few months later, because I'd had such got such a result of this, I shared it with other coaches that I knew at a coaching retreat in London. And they started talking about, well, could you do a spreadsheet for us? You know, this sounds really good. And I thought, initially I thought, well, I'm not sure about that because it's my workshops and it's my feedback. And I thought, how, you know, this could get really complicated. But a couple of coaches really insisted. And so I worked with them for a few months and we came up with more words. We came up with 115 keywords in the end. And we realized that all coaches get the same sort of feedback. But what was interesting is we all coach in our own ways. So it's not prescribing what type of coaching you're doing. So whether that's individual coaching or team coaching or group coaching, they all come under these 9 headings. So we've now been using this as a system for over 2 years. I've been using it longer because at first I didn't really believe it would work for anybody else. But it does. There's coaches all over the UK now using it. So anyway, what was interesting was the next part was, so we use it for individual coaching, we use it for team coaching. And then I've met Reg a little while ago, and we got together to do an open coaching program, and we decided to use the cards. So we will tell you how exactly we did this with really good results. But first of all, now that you've got a kind of an idea, basically of what the cards are, and if you see a picture behind me, this is a picture of the cards. I'll do the intros and then I'll go into a little bit more about how you use the cards, and then how we use them for the open coaching program. So to kick off, Reg, would you like to introduce yourself, and obviously if you've been using the cards, you know, what the benefits to you have been for using them?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Reg Gosling. I am I change it around a bit sometimes just to help the different audiences, but I am a career advance and development practitioner or coach. I work with people to develop themselves within their careers and help them to advance within the organisations that they're in, or I work with people on an individual basis because they want just their own personal development, which in turn impacts their career and their personal lives. I found these cards extremely useful. I want to say last year, but I've got a feeling it was the year before. Whereas I would spend a lot of time doing the old tools that we used to use for goal setting, and they're all wonderful tools, but sometimes they can take time to get a client into exactly what their goal is. And what I found with these cards after using them is that, let's say, for example, let's just put a time on it. Let's just say you spend an hour talking to a client about goal setting. If it's an hour, this takes 2/3 of the hour away. So you could effectively do it in 20 minutes with these cards to give you the direction that the client wants to go into. Then after that, you can still use the cards again to drill down into the specific behaviors. So if you're just looking at things like the team use, and you want to talk to a team about team and personal development, you know that it's the purple cards, and you know the workshop that you could run with that client. And when I say workshop, if you are working in a consultative way, it depends on how you work with your clients. If you're working in a consultative way in helping them and giving them information, then you can use the cards in that specific way. If you're using the cards in a pure coaching way, in such a way as you're not telling your client what to do, you can still help them in that specific area because that's the area that they deemed was necessary for them to get the results that they are looking for. So you can still question them around those specific areas. So to me, it was just something that took, not hassle because I enjoy the job, but it took some of the time away from one specific area so you can spend more time talking with the client on the actual results that they're looking to achieve. So that's how I use them on my own. And then we collaborated to pull together some workshops, which have gone really, really well. And I think it's a workshop, whereas once the last 2 are done in this week and in February, we can take a step back, dip it, and then rinse and repeat. Yeah. So I mean, so it doesn't just stop because we've just done the 4. Do you see what I mean? It's very clever in that way.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Reg. David, would you like to go next?
Yeah, there we are. So hello everybody, I'm David. I hope you can hear me okay. My apologies in two respects. First of all, I'm sitting in an open area at the IOD, and so you may get a bit of buzz in the background. But could you possibly just all raise your hands if you can hear me reasonably clearly? Fantastic. Okay. Second apology is that the nice people at the IOD have just delivered me a sandwich lunch, which I will not start eating until I've finished my intro. But I have a meeting straight afterwards at 2, so please excuse me if I will attempt to munch off screen. My background very simply is that I've only been coaching for about 4 years or so now, just over. Prior to that, I was finance executive for 25, 30 years. And Karen mentioned these coaching retreats, and I wasn't one of the original 3 that you referred to that participated in that exercise, but I was part of a group of coaches whom Karen brought what I think you described at the time was the prototype of the cards before you then got them produced and published in the nice glossy format that they are now. And you shared these around, and it was an absolute wow moment. Actually, I remember there were probably about 14, 15 people of us in the room when you showed them to us that time. And because I should have mentioned, my coaching is mainly either executive coaching or career strategy coaching, and most of what I have done hitherto have been sort of one-on-one. But I had started thinking at the time that I encountered the cards about team coaching, and for me, this was a really great way of actually introducing prospective clients and start talking to them about the things that I can offer. Now, I will admit here that unlike Karen, and I dare say some of you or all of you, I did not have a developed portfolio of team coaching workshops. And I tend to sort of develop things myself as and how I get into them. So, for example, the way I have used this is with the social housing sector, where I've worked for some 25 years, and I also have interest in governance. I'm a non-executive director myself in that sector. So I had some success last year, whereby I was having a meeting with the chief executive of a housing association who wanted to do some team development work with her board. And in a moment of inspiration, I always make sure I have the tools with. I said, do you want to do a little exercise? We were actually in quite a small room, and I suggested we find somewhere with a bigger table. So she took me down to her boardroom. We did the exercise. As Reg says, it's very quick. I think it took no more than 15 or 20 minutes. Now, that was last May. And I provided a report to the chief executive, and that trundled on and eventually resulted in in participating in as facilitator for a workshop for her whole board in November, for which, incidentally, I just happened to have got paid this morning.
Well done.
The circle has completed. Now, I have used the cards in a couple of other contexts, and I'm currently sort of waiting for proposals to land. These have been more with the HR directors and L&D type people. Sorry to take so long, but the reason I'm interested in this particular workshop, Karen and Reg, is because getting the bums on the seats is kind of the next challenge. So I haven't necessarily been so fortunate, or perhaps it's because I haven't had the ammunition to immediately convert from the diagnosis to actually the delivery in the way that you described from the outset. That's what I'm still learning, and that's still my main challenge.
Yeah.
The cards themselves, I love them, and I can see that they will do a lot more for me going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Well, just on that, David, just while I remember it, one of the coaches came back to me last week because she'd had a client, she'd done a clarity card session with the client, and she said, I didn't do the diagnosis right there and then because I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. So she said, I've brought them back. So I said, right, tell me what the results were. So she told me. I said, so this is what I'd suggest that I would do. And she said, well, I've got to be careful of the language. So it's an overseas client, well, Japanese actually. And I said, right, what you've got then in your box. So she set aside the cards that she'd picked. I said, what you've got is the language to use with that prospective client. She's already told you the words she likes. So in your feedback to her, use those words in the results.
Yes, absolutely.
And she hadn't even thought about that. She said, oh, that's brilliant. I was wondering how to feed this back to her. I said, you've already got her language. Just use the cards.
Yes.
Because that's what she likes to hear.
And interesting that you say that, because it reminds me to say that I do provide follow-up feedback in writing, and I've kind of developed a little bit of a format for that, which I think I've shared with you previously. And it may be that format is sort of too prescriptive or too heavily structured in a way that perhaps isn't landing with the people that I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's another learning point for me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, David. Thank you. Angelica, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm Angelica. I am Ecuadorian, so I am in South America. That's why I say good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. And I feel very related to David because before I certified as a coach in 2015, but before I was a business controller. I used to work in Bayer, in pharmaceutical, and I was doing the finance too. So it was. I feel very related. And now what I'm doing is more coaching on-one, individual coaching, but here especially in this country, coaching is a challenge in the sense of there is a mixture of concepts. So there comes a motivator who calls himself as a coach, or people who are doing consulting. So I think that right now we are in the stage to differentiate from other people, because I think that the market is polluted. So for me, my interest is always knowing different tools, interesting tools, because, especially in my country, there are a few people who speak very well English and have this like global overview, like there are people that are just in the Latin American environment and concept. So for me, I always try to find things elsewhere, and really to evolve my practice. Right now I entered in a partnership. So potentially we're going to gain a contract of one of the biggest companies here in Ecuador. And, I think that you have to give your best to your clients. So my interest always is to learn more about what I can learn from elsewhere,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why I'm here.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. And that bit about differentiating, I think that's worldwide, because that's a problem sometimes we get. People mix coaches up with mentors or consultants.
Yeah.
So that's everywhere. Yeah, thank you. And Eleanor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Karen. Hi there. My name's Eleanor, and I've been compared to you with your coaching business. I'm relatively new in the coaching space, having qualified middle of 2019, so very new to the coaching space. I have been working freelance as a HR consultant. My background's HR, a 20-year HR background, mainly in financial services. So set myself a couple of years ago working freelance in the HR consultancy space, and then added coaching to my portfolio if you like, kind of middle of last year. So I was fortunate enough to meet Karen, gosh, only a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, Karen, at the coaching retreat in London, and we spoke briefly about the clarity cards. So I'm just absorbing everything. I'm like a sponge at the moment, just kind of wanting to get kind of feelers of what's out there, what's going to be useful in terms of my toolkit as I develop my offering and my kind of portfolio with my clients. So yeah, keen to know.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you for that. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Share.
You find so, I don't know, charming.
Okay, can you all see that? Yeah. Okay. So this is basically what the clarity cards look like, but it's part of a whole system now. So it's kind of evolved from that initial spreadsheet into something, it's grown legs. I had no idea it was going to go like this. I just thought I'd got a little tool that would help me, and it's just kind of gone, you know, snowballed. So there's 115 of these. So they're in a pack, and as you can see here, there's a word on each one, a key phrase. Oh. And you'll notice they've all got little coloured blobs on the bottom as well. So, so say these are the words that came from the feedback that I got, or my testimonials. And the way that they work is literally, you can do this. I've done it in team situations. So I've gone into organisations and we've done workshops where the whole team have done them. Or you can do it one-on-one. And I'd suggest to start with, do one-on-one. So when we do our training days, that's how I get people using them one-on-one. So the idea is you're talking to your prospective client, you're finding out what their issue is or what their challenge is or what they're working on, and you introduce the cards and say, right, you know, go through these cards. And sometimes I'll just give them a few, so give them about 30 out of the pack of 115. And the beauty is you don't need to use all of them. So I'd say unless you were doing a long coaching program one-to-one and you wanted to use them as either a tool, review tool, then you can do. But for the sake of just diagnosing what's really going on for them and how you can help them, you only need to use about 30 or 50. So the idea is you're finding out in that initial conversation what the question is. So you do need to use these with a question. It's got to be a really good coaching question. Again, we train people how to do this. You've got to have quite a defined period, so not usually more than 3 months, so quite a short time scale. And it's usually a question such as, what do you need more of or less of to achieve X, or to get rid of Y, or, you know, whatever the thing is. So once you've got that question, you hand them the pack of cards or the subset of cards, and they're going through them one at a time quickly. So I tell them to go with their gut instinct, not to spend too much time debating or thinking about it. Do they need more or less of this word to achieve that goal? So when you're left with a pile of them, and sometimes it can be as many as this, which I wouldn't recommend, that's probably too many, but sometimes it's just a few that they give back. The idea then is, it's not so much the words that are important for you diagnosing, it's more about the colours on the dots. So these are colour coded. As you can see here, there's a line of green there and some purple there, and you're gauging which is the most predominant colour, and then the colour gives you that result. So if you're left with piles on the table, it's quite difficult then to see exactly what is the main colour. So what you do is you just put them so that you can just see the colour. So that's exactly the same cards in the second screen, but you can see here where it's mostly the red colour. Now these colours relate to the workshops that I used to run. So all I've done is I've made them generic. So for purple, just show you quickly here. On the purple, that was all about behaviours and motivation. So if purple came out as the main one, I'd know which workshop or what type of coaching tools to use. And the beauty of this is that any coach can zone into any of these areas, and you'll know what tools, or it could just be a coaching conversation, could be a particular technique that you use, but you'll have something in the bag for if people you choose yellow, you'll know that's about empowering and making them feel resourceful. You'll either have a coaching conversation around that, or you'll have a technique in your tool bag that will help them. So that is basically it. And you can do this in 10 minutes. So the way this worked for me and Reg was, because we do a lot of networking, we meet a lot of people. And part of that networking slot is to have a 10-minute one-to-one with 3 people in the room. So if you do networking, this is a brilliant way to just to introduce the cards. You're asking that person what is their challenge or what's going on for them. You're tweaking their interest by saying, well, do you fancy having a clarity card session? We can do this in 10 minutes, really get to the bottom of what's challenging you or the issue is, and find out what you need to get from it. So that's what me and Reg did. When we got together, we planned to do some open workshops. We wanted to use our network connections. And I said, well, the easiest way is probably just to use this as a kind of a survey tool. So it kind of evolved as we were talking about it. But that's exactly what we did. So we spent 10 minutes with, I can't remember exact numbers. I've got the results from 20 of them. I think it was between about 20 and 30 people. But from that, we got a big take up that I normally wouldn't have got. So I've run workshops for 10 years, and the biggest amount of time you'll spend is not planning it or developing it, but getting the people onto the workshop. And this drastically reduced that time of actually getting people interested to start with. But what we did was, we didn't sit down and say, right, let's do a workshop on A, B, and C. What we did was, we did this as a survey. We went and found out what people wanted and then fed back to them, right, this is what you really said you wanted. We've planned some workshops. So we planned a series of 4 workshops around this. Well, what we did was just captured, I'm not sure if you can see this, all right, I might just make it a bit bigger. Yeah, so I've taken the names out just for confidential reasons, but we had about 20 people that we surveyed. And at the end of each session, we just took a snapshot of what the cards were, give them some initial quick feedback. So you can see in this one, I've given some people some comments back here of a particular area they're interested in. So what we did was, we captured how many each person got of purple or mauve or blue out of the 9 colours, and then looked at the whole result as a whole to see that purple actually got the most, followed by aqua, and then green, and then blue. So using this as a result, as a survey tool, we knew that 4 areas were the most important. We didn't even realise we were doing this, but we started calling it the purple or the aqua workshop. And that stuck, that became part of our marketing. So people knew what the aqua one was going to do. We describe it. So the purple one was actually about kickstarting your business. So we had all things around motivation and gap analysis. The aqua one was about prioritizing and making decisions. So people knew what they were about, but for shorthand, people then started calling them by the colours. But these were the colours from the clarity cards. So out of 20 on this sheet, we actually got half of those people, either they've attended a workshop or they're coming to the next 2. And in terms of getting bombs on seat, that was really quite easy, because we were having those one-to-ones anyway, but it was immediate take-up of the workshop, because we were literally going back and telling them what they'd asked for. So we didn't really have to sell it to them. It was people told us what they wanted, and we were giving them what they needed. So before I carry on, any questions on that so far? Anything you want to add, Reg?
Oh, sorry, Reg, you go first.
No, there was nothing to add. I think that was pretty much how it happened, and it does, because you've gone through the conversation with them to actually build the workshop. So in some respects, I know people don't like to use the word, but you did half of the selling whilst you were doing that information gathering. So yeah, it was very effective.
Yeah, thanks, Reg. David, did you want to add something?
I wanted to ask something actually,
Yeah.
because in the course of your explanation, Karen, I was trying to perform the delicate task of moving from one table to another.
Right, I didn't notice. So
You know what it's like at the IOD. You try and sort of try and get to your favourite or an easier spot or a better spot.
Yeah.
The question was, and I may have just missed this as I was doing this. You said that you advertised this as an open event.
Yeah.
Where you conducted the survey. Where did these people come from, and who were they, just out of interest?
Right, so these were people that attended a networking event.
A networking event. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's the bit I missed.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, that was the crucial bit. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And the pitch for that networking event was what exactly?
Right, so this is a regular networking event that we go to. Well, we attend lots of them around Kent. So there's a whole load of them. And me and Reg, we were probably dipping in and out of 6 or 7 of them.
Great. So it's a captive audience. That's
so
the key thing.
Yeah.
They're there whether they...
Oh, yeah. So we weren't randomly going up to people in coffee shops, yeah. Although I have done it in a phone shop, in a mobile shop.
Right.
Yeah.
But all these 20 or 30 people were actually doing the cards bit at the same time, or
no?
Sort of,
well,
not in sequence, or how did it work?
No, yeah. So what happened was the last half an hour of these networking events, you get 3 one-to-ones with people for 10 minutes. So that meant if me and Reg went to the same one, we'd get 6 different people. So we'd tell each other, right, I've got a one-to-one with A and you get one with B. So, we weren't duplicating it. And then sometimes Reg would go to one sort of at Ashford, and I'd say, right, I'm going to Faversham instead, so I'll do it there.
Got it.
And sometimes we'd do a double act where you do the introductions at networking. We'd actually do it as a double act.
Right.
So that people could see we were collaborating as coaches.
Right.
Because that's quite a big thing to see coaches working with other coaches.
And finally, with this spreadsheet, you were actually able to give people the results from your surveying.
Yeah.
For this purpose on the spot or afterwards?
Yeah, in some cases on the spot. But what we did do, so we were only using, obviously, a 10-minute session. We were only using about 30 cards, so they weren't choosing a lot of cards.
Okay.
But as you know, you don't need to use the whole set. So that's the beauty of it. You don't need to spend a lot of time. We've done this so many times now where we thought, right, we've got the result, but let's carry on using the whole set. Well, actually, the result's still the same. So we could give initial feedback straight away, or it's just enlightening for them because they'd see which one they chose, and with the instruction sheet that tells you, what to feedback for each colour, you've then got that straight away, and you don't have to actually think of what to say. You can just feedback that instruction without actually, so you're not telling them anything. You're just saying, so what this means is blah blah, and this is the colour that you focused on. So in some cases, we could give people sort of tips or help straight away, because that's always, quite nice to do that. So so then what we did was afterwards, when we collated it, we then emailed everybody individually to say, right, these are the colours, this was your result, and you could put the metrics with it as well, so that you've got something there. And this is what we're planning to do. So you were really interested in the red and the purple workshop. However, sign up to all 4 and we'll do it as an offer for this amount. So a couple of people did that straight away. So, right, we'll come to all 4 then. Other people have just come you know, they've dipped in on one or done two, or they've booked for the third one. They've done it as they've got along. So
just to come back, because this is really this is really clever. In effect, you are, by doing this, you have given people individual one-to-one coaching needs met, but in groups, in workshops. That's the beauty of this, and because that's the sort of unusual outcome, in a sense, because normally what we as coaches tend to think about is you're either working one-to-one with people or you're working with teams. But here what you were doing is you were using a group situation to identify one-to-one coaching needs and offering those one-to-one coaching needs in a workshop setting that was actually more marketable, or convenient, or whatever you want to call it, from yours and Reg's point of view. Have I understood this right?
Yeah, that's it. And obviously it makes it more affordable for people as well, because if they're thinking about coaching, I don't know if I can afford a coach, you
totally
get all that.
Get that.
But if they come on a workshop, so what me and Reg do then is, on the evaluation form, we'll put to people, right, as part of this series, you get a free 30 minutes. Well, we're including a 30-minute coaching session either with me or Reg. So make sure you sign up for that. So obviously that's our way of prolonging that relationship. With, our marketing strategy is to get the one-to-one clients.
Yeah, you don't. The thing about them is this is just one specific way, and even with this one specific way, there's no shelf life for the process, because, as I said earlier on, you can dip, rinse, and repeat, and then change it completely, or dip, rinse, and repeat, and then do 4 totally different workshops, or just do one big long one-day workshop. The sky really is your oyster on how you want to use them, because at the end of the day, we don't lose sight of the fact that you're actually trying to help your client or client to achieve a specific result.
I have a question. You start, for example, in this case, you have the purple, the aqua, and green, like the 3 top behaviors or
colors,
whatever it is, kind. So you start with those workshops, but nevertheless, probably after a while you do a red workshop, and then you tell the people who pointed the red that you're going to give this workshop. That's what I understand.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. And the other question is, you invite whoever you have in your network or social media or whatever to invite an event. You do it in a place, and then you do this exercise. And this initial, you charge something, or is just?
We charge. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. At first we thought we'd probably just cover our costs, but we've been doing quite well out of it. So, as more people have booked on, so we've had more people each time. So
I love the idea. It's very clever.
I think it's great, and I mean, one of the beauties of it, I suppose, is that, I mean, particularly because of your geography, where you are operating, it's something that you can get networks of people together if you're working in a particular geographic area, which in other marketing contexts, there may be only, I don't know what it's like in Thanet or necessarily, for example, but there might be only sort of 2 or 3 big corporate opportunities that you would consider worth your while putting effort into. This way, you're getting the word out and the word around to a local network of people much more quickly and much more effectively than any other way you could do it, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just doing those one-to-ones. I've been approached by a local company. They've got about 22 staff, and they've asked me to run a workshop in-house for their staff, based on the clarity cards. Now, interestingly, this chap hasn't even, well, he's not had a recent clarity card session. I don't think he was in with this sort of lot. But because it's got round, because we're doing this with other people, you know, that's making it more accessible. So yeah, there's kind of lots of opportunities with that.
I think you've solved my dilemma for me, Karen, or at least pointed me the way to it. The way to, in order to sell, if I can say it that way, team coaching or group coaching, you've got to persuade an individual, someone who would commission it, to buy. And what I'm doing is kind of, you know, and what we do is a sort of the traditional way. You go to someone in the company, whether it's HR or L&D or whoever it is, and you're trying to convince that person that in a situation where they know they are being sold to. And we all know what it's like when you're sitting on the other side of the table. Nobody likes being sold to.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're turning this on its head, because you're putting individuals into the situation where they are seeing and getting the benefit of the clarity cards for themselves personally. And if they happen to be people of influence in their company or their business, like the one you just described that hired you then for a workshop of 22, they're much more likely to want to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And you can also, you know, use these open workshops as practice for when you go into corporate land, because, you know, you get a bit rusty if you haven't done one for a while. So doing this as a kind of a top up, it gives you a chance to not only practice what you're doing, but, you know, obviously to give a value to people as well. But then you're practicing what you're taking into organizations, so that when you take it into an organization, you've already done it, so it's a lot easier. Okay, so any other questions? Because I think I've pretty much shown you everything I was going to show you, apart from just the last bits while we're on. So as I told you, there's 9 colours. And just to quickly show you what the toolkit looks like. In fact, I'll show you the pie chart first. So the pie chart is the quick way to give a CEO the feedback. So going back to a bigger spreadsheet, because you can see this one. So as you can see, we've got the names up here. These aren't real people. I've put names in there. So you can imagine this is a team of people in an organization. You've done a clarity card session with each of them. And this is what the colors, how many of the colors each that they chose. Using this feedback as a feedback tool, you put the figures into an Excel spreadsheet and it produces this pie chart, which straight away you can see, well, it's mostly purple that's needed, a bit of mauve and quite a bit of green. Now we've used this to feed back to CEOs that don't want to read reams of stuff, and you know, this saves you doing a proposal, it just cuts a lot of work out, but people can see straight away as a snapshot what the results are, and obviously it keeps it anonymous as well. So if you're in a team situation and they're wary about what they want to feed back to the managers, you know, you're giving them that assurity, well, this is telling the CEO what is needed. So yeah, on this one, it's about behaviours and motivation. The mauve is about values, so maybe a values setting exercise for the organisation is needed. And then green is for one-to-one coaching that's needed for some of the individuals. So this is quite a nice quick snapshot. And then the other thing I was going to quickly show you was the toolbox of resources. So as I said, it's not just a pack of cards now, it's the whole toolkit, it's a whole system. So in the workshops, what was happening was people were saying, right, so I've identified red as a thing. So red's come out, what do I do as a red? So it was identifying what you use in your own toolkit. And then because some new coaches were coming on the workshop, they were saying, well, I've only learned a few things that I can use for this. Have you got any other things that you would use? So it would end up being a whole big discussion in the middle of the workshop. So I had to kind of put a hold on people saying, right, let's do this after the workshop, because there's not enough room, not enough time to discuss all these lovely techniques that we know about. So we've now got about 100 techniques that I'm slowly producing short videos, either as an introduction, or if you were trained years ago, it's a bit of a refresher. So as you can see, each of the colours have got what tools we've used, or what we'd recommend, or what some other coaches have used. So it kind of gives you a starting point. So when you're going in to see a prospective client and a colour comes out as the main diagnosis, you've got some immediate things you've got to say, like, right, so it's come out as red, so what we can do is look at this, and maybe we can work on this in a couple of coaching sessions. So you've got a kind of a ready toolkit, which makes it all very tangible. So it's not just about getting what the results they need, but it's tools that you can use, and in your one-to-ones or your team coaching workshops.
Okay, can I just ask Karen and Reg? I mean, it's great that you have provided this, which I really regard as an add-on and a benefit.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not saying you've got to use it. Yeah.
No, but what I was going to say was, I think this is a real benefit for those of us who have, as it were, joined the club. Bought the cards and were part of the circle, the inner circle. But would you actually say that really what a coach should do is design their own toolbox?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that actually they have very specifically in each of those 9 boxes, the things that they would personally use.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how the workshops have evolved now. So for the training for this, at the end, you get your own empty grid, and we all discuss, right, so as you as a coach, what would you put in those 9 boxes? So it's a way of seeing what you already know, but also it identifies some gaps that you might want to fill. So, it's quite a useful exercise to do.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good point. Yeah. So this is absolutely, it's down to you what you want to use as a part of the results. So it's not saying that, it's come out as blue, so you've got to use this. It's entirely up to you. This is just a kind of guideline, really. But it just grew out of somebody else saying, well, it'd be a good idea if we did this. I thought, oh, actually, I'll add that in then. I thought, right, that sort of took off that part.
The beauty as well is that you're almost given, because I've got a section on my laptop, which it's not like having a cupboard where you can see files. Your laptop is just something that's hidden. And what happens is when you do this and you have a box of resources, you can actually remind yourself of the tools that you've actually got that you use with your clients. So you're almost creating a bit of an inventory and then seeing where the gaps are, where you can add something else that you think might be useful. So that's how I would use this particular box as well.
And how many members of the club are there now, Karen?
So there's 20 now.
How many? Sorry.
20.
Wow.
20. Yeah. So people that are regularly using the cards, in organisations one-to-one. We've got some coaches that are using them all the time. Some are just using them now and again. Karen,
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have just in English this available?
At the moment, yes.
Yeah. Well, I will be very happy. I speak Spanish, of course, and Portuguese. So if you want to do something, I am really on board. I love this. It really entices me as this tool.
Yeah. Oh, lovely to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, maybe
sounds like a cross
going international. Yeah.
International
license. Yeah. And what happened is I certified as a coach in Brazil. Back then I used to live in Sao Paulo. So I have a lot of colleagues in Brazil. And I have also, because I study in a Mexican school, I have a network over Latin America. So this will be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thank you for that. Thank you. I have had some feedback from somebody at a workshop recently where they had Eastern European speakers, and they actually had a translator in with the workshop because of the language barrier. And they said when they did the clarity card session, what was interesting was the groups picked slightly different words, but when they came together, they actually meant the same thing. So some of the words, there is a bit of an overlap where, we couldn't decide out of 2 or 3 cards what to include, so we just included all of them. But they're very sort of like plan and planning and action plan. They're all quite similar, but people choose them for different reasons. But it brought the team together because they had to reach consensus, but realize they were all on the same sort of page with it. He said that was really nice to see, even though they picked different words. So that's good feedback.
Karen, can I just ask a question, please, in terms of the matrix that you put up with the numbers, just from I guess from a validation perspective, is there a minimum number of cards that should be used to make it kind of, the validation in terms of how many somebody is choosing of a certain colour, or that's a dominant area that you then probe into?
Yeah, sure. I'd say probably use about 50. Just to be sure to start with. I mean, I have used as little as 30, and I have used, let me see. So this one, I just used 8, but they were all coming out green or mauve. So I gave them feedback on that, which was fine. I'm just about to say something else then, I've forgotten.
I'll just add in, Karen, while you're thinking about it, for Eleanor. One thing that I remember Karen warning me about very early on was make sure, particularly if you're only going to use a part of the deck, make sure you have shuffled the cards.
That's what I was going to say.
The last time you used them.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I've done that where I say, oh, well, they're all coming out orange. Why? I've not shuffled them from last time. Yeah. So do make sure you shuffle them in between. Yes.
Yeah. And question then, to do that exercise with, say, between, like 50 to 80 cards, typically, I guess it depends how many people you've got, but typically how long would that take?
Or in a team situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually longer than you think in a team situation. Yeah. A workshop I had with 16 people, I think it ended up taking about 40 minutes.
Okay.
Because they all have to reach consensus. So we were doing it as a values type exercise. So I can tell you a bit more about this offline, because I know we're running out of time now. But yeah, if you want to chat more about that, Eleanor, we can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I was going to ask as well whether I'm intrigued just if there's anything on the other side of the cards. Obviously, I can't kind of get into the PC and turn them over. But whether...
That's it.
But I didn't know if there is anything... in terms of whether you'd ever had anybody say, like, oh, what do you mean by drive, or what do you mean by...
well, it's exactly what they think it means. So it's down to the client. It's their own interpretation. And I'd always say, when you're going into the coaching, the one-to-one session with them, if that's applicable, find out what these words mean for them, because that's the starting of your coaching conversation then. So yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I always, I think again, I took this as a tip or a lead from you, Karen. I always say to someone who's about to do the cards exercise, do this very intuitively.
Yeah.
Don't think too long and too hard about each word. Either it's what you want more of or less of, or it means nothing.
Yeah.
And be, really quick, and that's better, apart from also helping to save time, particularly with lots of people.
Yeah, I always say go with your gut instinct, don't overanalyze, do it quickly. So if people are doing it quite slowly, I do G them up a bit and say, don't overthink it. If you've got to think about it, then it's not relevant. Yeah. So yeah, good points. Yeah. So any more questions before we wrap up? Okay.
No,
so,
no, I'm done. I'm going to need to sign off in any case now. Thanks very much, Karen.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for taking part today. I will be sending you a special offer if you'd like to attend a workshop. I know, Angelica, it's probably a bit too far for you to come, but we can do something online. maybe in the future. So I'll send you.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to be in August and September in Europe. So I have
Okay.
my niece lives in London, so
Okay, so
send
we'll
me the
talk about that.
information and I will be
Yeah.
very happy to participate. Let's see how
Okay. Yeah.
we orchestrate this. Thank you.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks very much for taking part today. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot.